Edson Barboza versus Bryce Mitchell takes place this weekend on the main card of UFC 272, Covington versus Masvidal, and I can't wait for this featherweight bout. It's a big one in the featherweight division, two top contenders, and I do believe the winner of this one's going to be in a very good position to start calling out some names that are maybe just outside the top 5, maybe just inside the top 5. I believe if Bryce Mitchell wins, there's more of a chance he'll get a top 5 opponent than if Edson Barboza wins, because of course recently Edson Barboza lost that fight to Giga Chikadze quite badly, but Bryce Mitchell is of course undefeated in the UFC, and I also believe undefeated in his pro career as well. Very good record on the behalf of Bryce Mitchell. And how do I see this fight going? I do believe Bryce Mitchell's going to get this one done. However, I was hoping that maybe he wouldn't be like a decently sized favourite here. I was really looking forward to maybe an even odds fight. This is a really, really close one, but I was leaning sort of 51% in the direction of Bryce Mitchell, just leaning in his favour a tiny bit here in terms of what we've seen previously in Edson Barboza's career. Whenever he does come up against a pure grappler, they do seem to be able to get him down and do some work against him there, and I do believe that Bryce Mitchell now in Edson Barboza's career, another KO loss deep, a little bit of a layoff that he's had. I know Bryce Mitchell's had a bit of a layoff as well, so that is going to come into play. We'll talk about that in a second, because of course Edson Barboza is wickedly fast in that first round and can end it at any moment. But for Bryce Mitchell, he's a grappler who's undefeated, so he has that level of confidence going into this matchup. And Barboza is a little bit older, another weight cut down to 145 pounds. He just got basically KO'd again in his last fight pretty badly. Took a lot of damage there against Giga Chikadze. And now he's coming in against an undefeated grappler in Bryce Mitchell, who's got a decent chin because we've seen him hit by some big shots. And he does react well to getting hit. He'll find his way back into a fight, or he'll find the takedown and find a way to get on top. And his ground game is really, really good, and we've seen it implemented against some really good grapplers in the featherweight division. Andre Fili is not a guy that gets mauled on the ground by people. That's just not the case. Andre Fili is a remarkably good grappler, and still Bryce Mitchell, even with a broken hand, which people don't really talk about in that fight. He broke his hand, I believe, in the middle of the first round against Andre Fili in that fight by landing a punch on like the forehead of Andre Fili with his thumb or something like that. And he still goes out there and finds a way to get things to the ground and finds a way to get into full mount positions and create some danger and land some decent shots on top. This guy's got a real level of tenacity with his grappling that's not that of the Makwan Amirkhanis that we've seen Edson Barboza deal with before. Makwan Amirkhani has always had this problem in his career of when he does face adversity, he really starts to slow down, he really starts to throw away some good positions, and really starts to make some bad decisions that lead to him losing a fight. And he did that against Edson Barboza, even though he still found a way in the third round. Makwan Amirkhani, a guy who is known for slowing down in bouts and maybe not having the best of conditioning, which is something that Bryce Mitchell has plenty of. We saw that against Charles Rosa and against Andre Fili. This guy can hustle when the going gets tough in that third round to still make things happen and still like run a clinic of grappling on people like he did against Charles Rosa. But a guy like Makwan Amirkhani, who's known to slow down in the later rounds anyway, was still able to get dominant positions over Edson Barboza as that fight went on and control on top for the majority of most rounds. Now, he wasn't doing any damage, so whenever he did get back up and got dropped by Barboza, those rounds are obviously still going to go to Barboza. But I think the difference between Makwan Amirkhani and Bryce Mitchell is wow, that was a really bad stutter right there. Debating restarting the video, but we're going to continue anyway because it's late in the day. The tenacity of Bryce Mitchell, the durability, the relentlessness of his takedowns. If he fails the first shot, have fun stuff in the other 3. He sticks to you like glue, he chains together takedowns very well, and he gets the position that he wants on people, whether you like it or not in some cases. So I do believe that Bryce Mitchell's going to go out there, wear down Edson Barboza as the rounds go on. Maybe the takedowns are going to be tough early on, and he may take quite a few big shots. He might take some body kicks, some big shots to the forearms that he's going to have to defend. Maybe he gets cracked a couple of times on the chin. However, there's always going to be that next takedown that Edson Barboza has to worry about and that Bryce Mitchell will be going for. So in the first round, I do believe Edson Barboza is going to be out there giving Bryce Mitchell some really big problems in that first round. I think Barboza's maybe going to land a couple of big shots. Maybe Mitchell will surprise us with some pretty big shots because, again, he's a grappler. People aren't going to really expect good hands from him. But one thing I like about Bryce Mitchell is that he knows how to like disguise his punches with his grappling. Chad Mendes did this very well. I'm not comparing the stand-up skills of Mendes to Bryce Mitchell yet. We don't know yet with Bryce Mitchell. We haven't seen him against the top guys in the featherweight division. However, Chad Mendes used to do a really good job of making all of his shots look like he was about to go for a takedown, and he'd crack you on the chin and put you out really badly. Bryce Mitchell has a really fun style of dipping in, dipping out, switching stances. He'll punch, step through with the punch, and then shoot a takedown off of that instead. He's got really good setups that makes him a real problem to try and figure out what he's going to do. Is he firing a big punch over the top? Is he shooting a takedown under diffs? Now, maybe there is a chance that Edson Barboza could land that flying knee and put out Bryce Mitchell, and there might be some good odds somewhere online to specifically bet Edson Barboza by flying knee against Bryce Mitchell. However, I think Bryce Mitchell's got this one in the bag. He seems tough. He's durable, he's tenacious, and I think he's going to grit down, stick to Edson Barboza like glue, and chain together the takedowns that a guy like Makwan Amirkhani can't do. And I think that's going to lead to him beating Edson Barboza in the later rounds of this fight, and I'm going to say he's going to get the job done by third round arm triangle submission. Now, of course, he does like to go for the twisters. He does like to go for some of the unorthodox submissions that other people might not go for. However, I believe he's going to be more focused on establishing more dominant positions over the top of Edson Barboza rather than going for anything too wacky on the ground. I think he's going to be first focused on pinning Edson Barboza to the ground by establishing maybe a half guard on top, maybe eventually taking a full mount position and waiting for Edson Barboza to make a mistake before he eventually does go for a submission. And I think this will mean we see Bryce Mitchell take full mount, Edson Barboza try a frantic hip escape in the third round to try and work his way back up to the top. And I think that's when Bryce Mitchell's going to find his moment to pass over to the side, put in an arm triangle choke, and submit Edson Barboza in the third round. I really like this matchup for Bryce Mitchell, and I think Edson Barboza going in there worrying about the takedowns is just going to play on his mental game the entire time. He's not going to want to throw kicks. And one thing I also like about Bryce Mitchell that I think is a little bit unmentioned here, Makwan Amirkhani against Edson Barboza was stood right in front of Edson Barboza in certain moments, and that's when he got dropped by Barboza. He was stood still in front of Barboza, trying to like check hook Barboza as Barboza was trying to throw some straight shots. Bryce Mitchell does a really good job and a really underrated job of moving his feet all the time. All the time, he's moving around, he's coming in at weird angles, he's feinting a couple of steps through, then he'll circle back around on the outside, switching stances again, playing with his hands a little bit. Like, you never really know what he's going to do. He has a very unorthodox stand-up game for a grappler. Normally, you see like a grappler take the approach of maybe just coming forward like a bruiser like Khabib, or maybe just not playing the stand-up game at all and sitting back and waiting for their moment to get a good takedown. But Bryce Mitchell's actually pretty unorthodox on the feet. I think he needs to use his footwork that he does so well. Saw that in the Andre Philly fight as well. I also think his footwork's going to save him in certain moments, because I believe I watched I just watched his last fight against Andre Philly, and he actually got cracked at one moment in that fight on the chin, and it looked like he actually did feel that shot and go, oh shit, I've been hit by a... It's not like he got jelly leg wobbled all over the place where he's fucking jelly legging all over the place. He wasn't wobbling everywhere, but he got hit by a shot. Maybe he'll tell me otherwise, but he got hit by a shot that he thought, oh fuck, that was a big shot I just took. I can't take many more of them. And it kind of shocked him for a second. And I heard his coaches in the corner when that happened say, move your feet, move your feet. And he started to move his feet around, and it kind of like reprogrammed everything. Okay, I'm fine. I can get back into this. I can get back into the fight and shoot a takedown and find my way back on top again. And I think that's what's going to be very effective here against Edson Barboza. I think people underrate how big Bryce Mitchell is for the featherweight division as well. I think that's going to be a big factor here. I also believe that maybe the representation of Bryce Mitchell in the promos that they do, it kind of shows him off as like a guy who maybe wouldn't train hard, but like that's like a pretty inaccurate representation of who he is. Like, I'm don't get me wrong, I'm sure he is out there lifting those branches with the slabs of concrete on the side of him for some weightlifting stuff whenever he is out in the field doing his work on the land. But there's also a considerable amount of time in the gym against extremely good grapplers working on his grappling game. There is that serious side of, okay, let's really buckle down and get some real specific training done here. And I just believe that Bryce Mitchell's going to be able to find his way on top of Edson Barboza. But once he does find his way on top of Edson Barboza, have the energy, the tenacity, the will to push past some defenses of Edson Barboza on the ground, to make sure he can get Edson Barboza back down to the ground if Edson Barboza works his way back up. That's not going to have been seen in previous Edson Barboza featherweight grapplers that have tried to impose their will on him. I keep mentioning Makwan Amirkhani, but I think it's a perfect example. He ain't got that grit. He's never had that grit, yet he still found himself on top of Barboza in that third round. Dan Ige found himself on top of Barboza. You know what I mean? People have been able to get this guy down in the featherweight division, and those are people that I don't consider to have the same level of grappling as Bryce Mitchell. So I'm going to go with Bryce Mitchell here. I think his unorthodox movement on the feet is going to be a problem for Barboza. I know this is a bad example that might curse him, but Beneil Dariush actually had really good unorthodox footwork on the feet, and it really helped him deal with the stand-up of Edson Barboza. And I think that's why Bryce Mitchell's going to do quite well on the feet here and not get like KO'd out of nowhere or really badly beaten up to where he can't even shoot a takedown before he gets finished by TKO. I know Beneil Dariush eventually got KO'd with a flying knee in the second round, but his weird movement on the outside and weird style of attack really did bother Edson Barboza, because Edson Barboza is a guy who likes things simple. You know what I mean? He wants you in front of him, you're doing something, you're shooting a takedown, or you're stood in front of him. Even against Khabib, I'm sure he would prefer a Khabib style of opponent than a guy who's moving around on the outside all the time that can shoot a double leg out of nowhere at any moment that he has to worry about. I just think Barboza at this point in his career, getting older, going to be worried about the takedown the entire time. He's coming off a loss. Bryce Mitchell's got something to prove. He's been out for a while. He's got an undefeated mindset. I think he's going to go out there and grit through maybe a tough first round to eventually get Barboza to the ground. And I think his amount of takedowns that he may achieve in this is going to benefit him, because Barboza is not known for the best of gas tanks when he has to fend off a bunch of takedowns. So I can see Barboza gassing out, frantically trying a bad hip escape in round 3, and then Bryce Mitchell sinking in the arm triangle. But maybe in round 2, there's going to be some moments where it's against the cage. Bryce Mitchell's got one hook in on the back. Edson Barboza's trying to fight the grip and find an underhook, but he can't quite do it. Bryce Mitchell drags him down to the canvas again, but he's maybe not getting the dominant positions of full mount or anything like that, or maybe he doesn't take the back straight away. Maybe he just settles up in full guard on the bottom, lands a couple of total strikes to soften Edson Barboza up in the second round. I just think this is a great matchup for Bryce Mitchell, and I think Barboza has some kind of PTSD whenever he takes on grapplers because of the amount of times that he has been taken down and mauled in his career, which actually isn't too many times. But a certain level of grappler can do it to him. And I think Bryce Mitchell's that level of grappler. We see a lot of people on the ground with Charles Rosa, and they'll make it close. You know what I mean? Or they'll like just maybe like ride out a good position on top and land some total strikes. Bryce Mitchell, I said this in a previous video, I believe, but it's the best word I can think of. He did molest him. Like, I know it's maybe a touchy word to use, especially with the whole Cain Velasquez story that's just come out. So maybe I won't use that word. But Bryce Mitchell sodomized Charles Rosa, let's just say. He ran a clinic on him on the ground and chained together. It's like he was picking submissions. And that's a level of grappling that you don't see too often. You can see a guy find his way into a submission position and then finish from there. But Bryce Mitchell is one of the few grapplers that I watch on the ground, along with some other really great grapplers, where I can see his mind actually working like, maybe I'll go for this. Fuck it, I'm going for this. Like, he actively thinks out, like, this is what I want, I'm setting this up. And you'll just watch him go through step by step, getting to that position. There's no like random scramble where he ends up in a decent position and then goes for the sub. Like, he actively puts people there. And I think he's going to get this one done. We'll see how it goes though. I'm rooting for Bryce Mitchell, one of my favourite fighters. This embedded series has really put him on the map for a lot of people as a very good personality in MMA, I'm sure. But I still believe he's going to get this one done. I just think he's unorthodox enough on the feet and tenacious enough with his grappling to get a third round finish here. But it's going to be tough early on, Bryce. If you're watching this video right now, There's going to be some heat early on, and I think you should fake a couple of takedowns first. I know I'm just a fucking guy at home that knows nothing. So me saying, hey, maybe you should do this is like a dumb thing. But like, let's fake a couple of takedowns, because I want to see Edson Barboza throw flying knees at nothing. That's what I need to see that first, because otherwise I'm going to be worried that Bryce Mitchell just like stance switches and double legs straight into a flying knee. So I think what he needs to do is throw some wacky stuff early on, move around on the outside, do a couple of those stance switches into level changes, and maybe just back away after that level change, that fake level change. See if you can draw out a knee of Edson Barboza, and then we'll see what happens after that. Make him guess, you know what I mean? Don't just keep shooting because you're on the feet with Barboza. But easier said than done. I'll shut my mouth and let the pros handle it this weekend. But I got Mitchell by third round sub. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. The winner of this one's going to be in a really good position in the featherweight division. I do believe if... I don't know. The winner of this one's in an awkward position, though. It's a good position to be in. If you're Bryce Mitchell, maybe. Because maybe you could snatch up that Calvin Kattar fight. Maybe you could snatch up a returning Zabit Magomed Sharipov fight. And if I was Bryce Mitchell, I would call out Zabit. That's what you should do. If Bryce Mitchell wins, call out Zabit, because you know why? Kattar's probably going to fight Emmett. I don't think they're going to do Zabit versus Kattar 2, because that was Zabit's last fight before he left the sport for a while. I don't see them giving Zabit to Holloway. So I could see them doing Kattar versus Emmett, sort of reserving a title shot for Max Holloway. Someone's going to have to fight Zabit, and no one's calling him out, and they're doing Ortega versus Yair Rodriguez. Get on the microphone, and after you're done bigging up Arkansas and talking about your camo shorts and your okra eating habits that you go through and whatever other poor wild animal you've fucking ran submissions on in the woods. I don't want to hear about your personal business, okay? Whatever you do in the woods with those animals is up to you, Bryce Mitchell, okay? But I'd say call out Zabit at the end. Just like, hey, at the end of all this, yeah, you're in fucking Arkansas. I'm going to say Arkansas. Fuck Zabit, and just give a little fuck Zabit and then run off. You know what I mean? And that will set up the promo. Like and subscribe. Click that button up there. Goodbye. See you later. Yeehaw, brother.